Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we're going back in time, way back, to explore the animal kingdom through the eyes of the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle.
Ah, yes.
Our main source for this is going to be his fascinating work, History of Animals.
Hmm.
You might be thinking, this is going to be a bit dry,
Right.
but trust me, it's anything but. Even though it was written over 2,000 years ago, this work is full of surprising insights and even some funny moments.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And don't worry, if you haven't brushed up on your ancient Greek philosophy lately, we'll be your guides. We'll unpack the most interesting parts and explain everything along the way.
It really is a remarkable work. What's so captivating about History of Animals is that it gives us a glimpse into how people long ago tried to make sense of the natural world.
Right.
Aristotle's observations, some spot on, others a bit off the mark, show us how scientific understanding evolves over time.
Okay, so let's dive in. I'm really curious about how Aristotle approached studying animals.
Mm.
This is well before microscopes or DNA analysis, so what tools did he have at his disposal?
His most important tool was his own power of observation.
Hmm.
Aristotle was a firm believer in seeing things for himself, gathering evidence through direct experience rather than relying on myths or secondhand accounts.
So no armchair theorizing for Aristotle. He was out there in the field, getting his hands dirty, so to speak.
Exactly. Imagine him exploring the diverse environments of Greece, meticulously observing everything, from the intricate gills of fish to the powerful trunk of an elephant. He was a true naturalist, laying the groundwork for the scientific method centuries before it was formally established.
Speaking of methods, I know Aristotle was big on categorizing animals based on their similarities.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that? It seems like a pretty foundational concept in biology.
It is. Aristotle believed that the vast diversity of animal life could be understood by grouping animals based on shared characteristics. This is where his concept of genera and species comes in.
Right.
Think of genera as a broader category, like birds or fish and species, as a more specific group within that category, like robins or trout.
So a hierarchy of categories helping him organize his observations.
Hmm.
That makes sense, but I have a feeling History of Animals is more than just a dry list of categories, right?
Oh, absolutely. He describes a whole menagerie of creatures.
Okay.
Some of them will be familiar, but others sound so outlandish that they almost seem like they belong in a book of mythical creatures.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Let's talk about some of these creatures. What are some of the standout examples that caught Aristotle's eye?
He describes this fascinating creature called a sea nettle that clings to rocks and can sting your hand, causing painful swelling. We know this today as a sea anemone. It's fascinating that he made the connection between the creature's stinging ability and the reaction it caused.
I see what you mean about connecting cause and effect. That's a fundamental step in scientific thinking. I'm curious, did he mention any animals that we might find more familiar?
Oh, yes, of course. He talks about chameleons, describing their rough skin almost like a crocodile's and their ability to move their eyes independently. And he was clearly fascinated by dolphins, particularly their unique blowhole and what he perceived as signs of their intelligence.
It's amazing to think that over 2,000 years ago, he was already picking up on the intelligence of dolphins.
Yeah.
What else caught his attention?
He spends quite a bit of time on elephants, marveling at their size, strength, and that incredible trunk, which he compares to a hand in its dexterity. He was also intrigued by the octopus, particularly its intelligence and its ability to change color and texture to blend in with its surroundings. Today, we call that camouflage, but Aristotle was already observing and documenting this remarkable adaptation strategy.
Camouflage is such a clever survival tactic. It makes me wonder what other insights Aristotle had about how animals interact with their environment. But before we go down that path, I have to ask, surely not all of his observations were so accurate, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, science has come a long way since then.
You're absolutely right. While Aristotle was a keen observer, he and the people of his time also held some beliefs that we now know are incorrect.
Okay, spill the beans. I'm ready for some of those out there ideas.
One of the most striking examples is his belief in spontaneous generation, the idea that some living things could arise spontaneously from non-living matter. For example, he believed that insects could simply emerge from dew, mud, or decaying material.
Wait, so he thought flies just magically appeared out of thin air?
Essentially, yes. It might seem strange to us now, but this was a widely held belief for centuries. It wasn't until much later, thanks to scientists like Louis Pasteur, that we understood that all life comes from pre-existing life, a concept known as biogenesis.
So a big shift in our understanding of where life comes from. It's incredible how scientific knowledge builds upon itself, correcting misconceptions along the way. What other curious ideas did Aristotle hold about the animal world?
His ideas on animal reproduction were a real mixed bag. For example, he had some interesting, albeit inaccurate, ideas about how fish reproduce.
Ooh. Tell me more about that. What did he think was going on beneath the waves?
Well, he observed that some fish lay eggs while others give birth to live young, but without the benefit of modern tools, he misunderstood certain reproductive processes.
Uh-huh.
He described some fish, like the pipefish, as literally splitting in half to create offspring.
Splitting in half. That's a pretty dramatic way to reproduce. I can see how he might have come to that conclusion based on what he was able to observe, though. What else did he get wrong about animal reproduction?
He also documented some rather colorful myths that were circulating at the time.
Okay.
One particularly vivid example is the idea that baby vipers chew their way out of their mother's wombs.
Ouch, that sounds a bit traumatic, to say the least.
Hmm.
It's a reminder that even the greatest minds can be influenced by the folklore and misconceptions of their time.
Absolutely. Separating fact from fiction has always been a challenge, even for someone as dedicated to observation as Aristotle. But despite these inaccuracies, he still made a number of incredibly insightful observations about how animals reproduce and care for their young.
That's what I find so fascinating about history of animals. It's a blend of keen observation and, let's face it, some wild speculation. What are some of the other creatures and behaviors that caught his attention?
He devoted a lot of time to observing bees, meticulously describing the different roles within the hive, the queen, the workers, the drones. He even recognized that there was a hierarchy within the bee society, although he didn't fully grasp all the nuances of their complex social structure.
So he was starting to piece together the idea of different levels of organization within a species.
Exactly. He also documented how bees collect nectar and pollen, transport it back to the hive, and use it to produce honey. He even noticed that they mix water with thyme nectar before sealing the honeycomb. It's clear that he spent a lot of time observing these tiny creatures and their remarkable industriousness.
It's amazing to me that he was able to capture so much detail without the benefit of, say, a magnifying glass. What other tiny creatures did he study?
His observations of the octopus are particularly detailed and insightful. He was clearly impressed by its intelligence and adaptability, noting how it uses its tentacles not just for locomotion, but also for manipulating objects and bringing food to its mouth. He even described the specialized tentacle it uses for reproduction.
Wow, those are some pretty specific anatomical details. We talked earlier about his observations of camouflage in octopuses. What else did he notice about their remarkable ability to blend in?
He was fascinated by how octopuses can change their color and texture to match their surroundings, almost as if they disappear. And he made this interesting observation that they don't release all their ink at once, that it replenishes over time.
It's like he was thinking about the practicality of camouflage, that it's not just a one-time trick, but a sustainable strategy for survival. It makes me wonder about what he would have thought about the camouflage abilities of other animals, like the chameleon you mentioned earlier.
He was definitely intrigued by the chameleon's ability to change its appearance. He describes its skin as being rough, almost like that of a crocodile, and comments on the way it can move its eyes independently. It's as if he was trying to puzzle out how these physical adaptations contributed to the chameleon's survival.
It's like he's starting to grasp the concept of evolutionary adaptation, even if he didn't have the framework to fully explain it. What other animals did he connect to their environment in this way?
Well, he talks about this fish, the stingray, which buries itself in the sand, blending in with its surroundings to ambush its prey. He even describes how it uses its barb to paralyze its victims, quite a formidable defense mechanism.
It sounds like he was starting to piece together entire ecosystems, recognizing how different species interact with each other and their environment.
Yes, and he was particularly fascinated by how animals respond to changes in weather and seasons. He describes how some animals, like bears, hibernate during the colder months, seeking out warm shelters to conserve energy when food is scarce. And he observed that certain fish migrate to different waters depending on the temperature and time of year.
It's almost like he's foreshadowing our modern understanding of animal migration patterns.
And speaking of patterns, he observed some interesting mating behaviors as well. For instance, he noted that mares in heat tend to flee from other horses, and he even described a substance called hippomanes, a growth found on newborn foals, which was believed to have aphrodisiac properties.
Aphrodisiac's always a topic of interest even back then. What other mating behaviors did he document?
He also noted that male camels display a strong aversion to mating with their mothers, even showing reluctance when handlers tried to force the issue.
It's pretty remarkable that he picked up on these complex social and reproductive behaviors. It's making me think about all the ways we continue to learn about animals today. I mean, we have so much more technology at our disposal, but the basic principles of observation and deduction that Aristotle used are still relevant.
Absolutely. History of Animals is a testament to the power of human curiosity and the importance of careful observation in understanding the natural world. It's a reminder that even in the absence of sophisticated technology, we can still make remarkable discoveries about the creatures we share our planet with.
Well said, Nina, and I know there's still a lot to uncover in Aristotle's work, but for our listener who's probably glued to their headphones soaking all of this in, what's the key takeaway from this part of our deep dive?
I think the main point is that Aristotle's work, even with its inaccuracies, represents a significant leap forward in our understanding of animals. He moves beyond simply cataloging creatures to trying to grasp their behaviors, their adaptations, their place in the web of life.
That's a great point. He's taking those first steps toward a more holistic understanding of the animal kingdom. Now in our final segment, we're going to step back from the specific creatures and explore the lasting legacy of Aristotle's work. How did these observations, both accurate and outlandish, influence the study of animals for centuries to come? Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive into Aristotle's history of animals. We've explored some of his most intriguing observations, from the surprisingly accurate to the downright outlandish. Now, in this final segment, let's consider the lasting impact of his work.
It's fascinating to think about how these observations made over 2,000 years ago influenced the course of scientific thought. For centuries, Aristotle's writings were considered the definitive source of knowledge about the animal kingdom.
So his work was like the go-to textbook for anyone interested in studying animals.
Absolutely. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of a comprehensive encyclopedia of zoology. And his influence went beyond just the facts he recorded. His emphasis on direct observation and his methodical attempts to categorize animals based on shared characteristics set the stage for the development of the scientific method.
Right, we talked earlier about his concept of genera and species, which is still foundational to how we classify organisms today. It seems like he was really laying the groundwork for a more systematic approach to understanding the natural world.
Exactly. And his work inspired generations of scholars who came after him. For example, Pliny the Elder, a Roman naturalist, drew heavily on Aristotle's work when compiling his own massive encyclopedia of natural history. And Galen, a prominent physician and philosopher, built upon Aristotle's ideas about anatomy and physiology.
It's incredible how those early observations, made without the tools we have today, had such a ripple effect on the development of scientific thought. It makes you realize how interconnected knowledge is, how each generation builds upon the work of those who came before.
It really highlights the importance of preserving and studying ancient texts. They offer a window into how people in different times and cultures grappled with understanding the world around them. And they often contain insights that are still relevant today.
I'm also struck by how Aristotle's legacy reminds us that science is a constantly evolving process.
Yeah.
He got some things wrong, but that's part of the journey of discovery. Each new observation, each new experiment brings us closer to a more complete understanding of the universe.
That's a crucial point. It's not about being right or wrong all the time. It's about the pursuit of knowledge, the willingness to observe, question, and revise our understanding based on new evidence. And that spirit of inquiry is something that Aristotle embodied so well.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into history of animals, what's the key takeaway you hope our listener will carry with them?
I think the most important message is this. Never underestimate the power of observation and the value of curiosity. Aristotle's work shows us that even in the absence of sophisticated technology, we can make profound discoveries about the world around us by simply paying attention, asking questions, and seeking to understand.
Beautifully put. So to our listener, as you go about your day, take a moment to appreciate the incredible diversity of life that Aristotle was so captivated by. Observe the creatures around you, big and small, familiar and strange. Ask questions about their behaviors, their adaptations, their place in the web of life. Who knows, maybe your own observations will contribute to the ever-evolving tapestry of scientific knowledge, just as Aristotle's did over 2,000 years ago.